Human abilities, intelligence. Intelligence in all cultures is the ability to learn from experience, solve problems, and use our knowledge to adapt to new situations. Bennett and Simon 1905 define intelligence as the ability to judge well, to understand well, and to reason well. According to H. Gardner, an intelligence is the ability to solve problems or to create products that are valued within one or more cultural settings. Wetzler defined intelligence as the aggregate or global capacity of the individual to act purposefully, to think rationally, and to deal effectively with the environment. The idea that general intelligence G exists comes from the work of Charles Spearman, 1863 to 1945, who helped develop the factor analysis approach in statistics. He proposed the idea that intelligent behavior is generated by a single unitary quality within the human mind or brain, whereas L. Thurston, a critic of Spearman, analyzed his subjects not on a single scale of general intelligence but on seven clusters of primary mental abilities, including word fluency, verbal comprehension, spatial ability, perceptual speed, numerical ability, inductive reasoning, and memory. Thurston's work in factor analysis led him to formulate a model of intelligence centered around primary mental abilities, which were independent group factors of intelligence that different individuals possessed in varying degrees. Biological determinants. In the past years, genetics were able to persuade most psychologists that heredity plays an effective role in influencing intelligence. However, a high degree of heredity does not mean that the environment has no influence on the development of any trait. Nesser et al. 1995. The concept of heritability has its origins in animal breeding, where variation in genotype and environment is under the control of the experimenter, and under these conditions, the concept has some real world applications. In human, however, variability is uncontrolled. There is no true degree of variation to estimate, and heritability can take practically any value for any trait depending on the relative variability of genetic endowment and environment in the population being studied. According to Scott, 1998, there is no single gene for intelligence, personality, behavior, or even height. For example, a specific chromosome is responsible for eye color, and another one is responsible for hair color. So, environment has nothing at all to do in such traits. However, it is important to clarify that environment can be divided into categories. These categories are shared environment and non-shared environment. Each category may or may not have effects on individuals' intelligence. Numerous studies have used monozygotic identical twins and dizygotic fraternal twins to get a sense of how strongly heredity affects IQ. Since monozygotic is derived from one fertilized zygote, in the case of identical twins, it is anticipated that the twins will obtain very close IQ scores even if they are raised in different environments. Furthermore, dizygotic is derived from two fertilized zygotes. Therefore, in the case of fraternal twins, it is expected that the twins will obtain close IQ scores, but not as close as the identical twins because they are not identically hereditary. The result of one study conducted on twins by Bocott and McHugh 1981, based on data obtained, has found that the data for identical twins that reared together and apart indicates a strong influence of heredity on intelligence. However, the adoption studies too indicate that intelligence is not determined entirely by heredity. The distinct environments that different families provide do have some influence on intellectual development. Socioeconomic and cultural determinants. The evidence from adoption studies that social class greatly affects the IQ of children raises questions about exactly what correlates of socioeconomic status SES affect IQ. Many researchers have found the socioeconomic status of children to be strongly correlated with both performance and intelligence scores. In one study, psychologists used the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for children as a measure of intelligence. They found that heritability of IQ was much higher in children of above average SES than it was for children living in poverty. Linda Gottfredson claimed that low G is actually the fundamental cause of inequalities both among and within social classes. 2004. She has found that 30% of young white adults with IQs of 75 or less live in poverty, while only 2% with IQs higher than 125 live in poverty. Gottfredson 2004. The Hart and Risley 1995 findings are amplified by studies using the home observation for measurement of the environment technique. Home researchers assess family environments for the amount of intellectual stimulation that is present as indicated by how much the parent talks to the child, how much access there is to books, magazines, newspapers, and computers, how much the parents read to the child, how many learning experiences outside the home, trips to museums, visits to friends. There are the degree of warmth versus punitiveness of parents' behavior toward the child, and so on. These studies find marked differences between the social classes, and they find that the association between home scores and IQ scores is very substantial.
Sternberg, 2007, with regards to cultural difference in intelligence, said that people that are considered intelligent may vary from one culture to another, along with the acts along with the acts that constitute intelligent behavior. It has been shown, for example, that tests which are highly novel in one culture or subculture may be quite familiar in the next, so that, for instance, unschooled subjects may fail at classification tasks, characteristics of school learning contexts, and succeed with classification relevant to their own everyday practical experiences. In other words, people will be good at doing things that are important to them and that they have opportunities to do often. In other study, Sternberg and his collaborators found that children who score highly on a test of knowledge about medicinal herbs, a measure of practical intelligence, tend to score poorly on tests of academic intelligence. The results suggest that practical and academic intelligence can develop independently or even in conflict with each other, and that the values of a culture may shape the direction in which a child develops. Theories of intelligence. Spearman's two factor theory. Spearman proposed his two-factor theory of intelligence in 1904. According to him, intellectual abilities were comprised of two factors: one general ability or common ability known as G factor, and the other a group of specific abilities known as S factor. G factor is largely innate and accounts for success in all activities. S factor is acquired from the environment, and success in any specialized field very much depends on the concerned specific factor, which is essential essentially learned. It varies from activity to activity in the same individual. Thurston's group factor theory. L. Thurston, while working on a test of primary mental abilities, came to the conclusion that certain mental operations have in common a primary factor which gives them psychological and function unity and which differentiates them from other mental operations. These mental operations then constitute a group. A second of mental operations has its own unifying primary factor, a third group has a third, and so on, each of these primary factors giving the group a functional unity and cohesiveness and is said to be relatively independent of others. Thurston has given the following six primary factors. First, the number factor, and the ability to quickly and accurately solve numerical calculations. 2, the verbal factor, V, the ability to understand the meaning and relationship of words. 3, the space factor, S, the ability to do any task in which the subject manipulates the imaginary object in space. 4, memory, M, the ability to memorize quickly. Word fluency factor, W, the ability to think and use many isolated words at a rapid rate. The reasoning factor, R, ability to see relationships in situations described in symbols. Based on these factors, Thurston constructed a new test of intelligence known as test of primary mental abilities. Guilford structure of intellect. Guilford 1967, 1985, 1988 proposed a three-dimensional structure of intellect model. His structure of intellect model organized the various abilities along three dimensions: content, product, and operations. He further classified content into five categories, namely: first, visual information perceived through seeing; two, auditory information perceived through hearing; three, symbolic items such as words and symbols which generally convey some meaning; 4, semantic, concerned with verbal meaning and ideas; 5, behavioral information perceived as observed behavior of individual. The product dimension contains results of applying particular operations to specific contents. Guilford classified products into six categories, namely: first, units. This includes symbolic units such as words and visual units such as shapes, or behavioral units such as facial expressions. Two, classes, sets of units sharing common attributes. Three, relations, ability to find out the relationships between pairs of units. Four, systems, multiple relations interrelated to comprise structures or networks. 5, transformations, ability to sense changes, perspectives, conversions, or mutations to knowledge. 6, implications, ability to make predictions, inferences, consequences, or anticipations of knowledge. Guilford classified operations into five categories, namely: first, cognition, the ability to perceive the various items in terms of understanding, comprehending, discovering information; two, memory, the ability to store and retrieve various kinds of information; three, divergent production, the ability to generate multiple solutions to a problem. It includes creativity. Four, convergent production, the ability to reduce a single solution to a problem. This area includes most areas of logic type problem solving. 5, evaluation, the ability to make judgments about information to check whether it is accurate, consistent, or valid. Since each of these dimensions is independent, there are theoretically 150 different components of intelligence. Measurement of intelligence. There is a variety of psychometric tests for measuring intelligence. The Stan Standard Binet intelligence scales was originally developed by Alfred Binet in 1905. It was later revised by Louis Terman and has been revised several times since then. The most revised version of this test, SBV, measures five weighted factors and consists of both verbal and non-verbal subtests. The five factors being tested are knowledge, quantitative reasoning, visual spatial processing, working memory, and fluid reasoning. The fifth edition incorporated a new scoring system which can provide a wide range of information such as 4 intelligence score composites, 5 factor indices, and 10 subtest scores. Additional scoring information includes percentile ranks, age equivalents, and a change sensitive score. Extended IQ scores and gifted composite scores are available with the SB5 in order to optimize the assessment for gifted programs. The Wechsler intelligence scales were developed by David Wechsler, a clinical psychologist, 1939. The test provides four major scores: verbal comprehension, perceptual reasoning, working memory, and preceding speed. Additionally, the WAIS 4 provides two overall summary scores: full scale IQ and general ability index. Another tool to measure intelligence is culture fair tests. These tests, also known as culture free tests, are designed to assess intelligence or other attributes, irrespective of environmental factors. Raymond Kettle developed his culture fair test in the 1940s to study intelligence across the cultures of civilized countries. The Kettle scales are intended to assess intelligence independent of cultural experience, verbal ability, or educational level. They are used for special education placement and college and vocational counseling. The test consists mostly of paper and pencil questions involving the relationships between figures and shapes. The Kettle Culture Fair test is now little used because it did not achieve the goal of being free from the influence of culture on learners. Thank you.